Good afternoon. So today is day 4 of the Feeling Feelings Challenge, and today's topic and discussion is around owning our feelings. So all things self-responsibility. Self-responsibility is a big thing. It's part of one of the keys to my Joyflu recipe. So I'm actually going to do a full challenge in 2020, not doing it this year, purely just based on self-responsibility. However, a big part of feeling our feelings is actually taking responsibility for the feelings that arise in ourselves. For a long time, majority of my life, I believed that feelings weren't something that we could control and that they could crop up and be caused by things external. Okay, so a common thing was, if something happens, someone did something, a common thing that I would sort of either say to myself or to that person is, well, you made me feel X, as opposed to I'm feeling X as a result of what's happened or what a person has done. And just that little change wording, and actually can take it a step further and actually go, I'm choosing to feel angry, upset, sad because of X. Yeah, so I'm choosing to feel. Okay, now this, even early on, this didn't make any sense to me until, and it's such a vivid memory. So many years ago, in the late 2000s, I have a memory of just feeling really flat and crappy, just, feeling a bit blah. And I remember reflecting on this concept of owning, being responsible for our feelings, and that we can choose to change them. And I remember feeling that I was on the tram heading home. I was living in Glen Iris at the time. And I remember actually contemplating on the tram about how shitty and crappy I was feeling. And then I remembered the idea of self-responsibility and choosing the story behind those feelings. And so I looked at what my thought patterns were, and that was, I'm feeling stressed, tired, not doing enough exercise, or whatever it was at the time. And I remember changing the story and using gratitude, go figure, using gratitude to change my thinking. And the moment I changed my thoughts and focused on some of the positive experiences and things that were going on for me at the time, my feelings totally shifted and transformed. And it was just so instant, so quick and easy. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe there is something to this choosing how we feel. I just think this is so critical to highlight, in particularly right now in this point of time where we're in such a politically correct shitstorm, to put it bluntly, where it just seems like we are constantly being triggered by non-PC opinions, particularly in the social media scene, but we seemingly are dumbing our opinions down so that we don't offend anybody. Yeah. From when I was a kid and we grew up watching, beautiful comedy shows like Fast Forward or The Comedy Club, like a lot of those shows don't exist anymore, where we would literally just take the mickey out of, ourselves and cultural groups in our society, but with good humor. Whereas now it's like, if you go back and watch some of these old shows, you're like, oh my God, there is no way that would be on TV anymore, because it would just like offend the crap out of everybody. So when something upsets us, when someone says something that brings up unpleasant feelings and emotions, actually owning that instead of blaming and telling that person to not do that. Like taking the responsibility and going, yeah, they did say or do that thing, and I am choosing for that to invoke a particular unpleasant feeling for myself. And then doing the work and processing that particular feeling so that then it's healed. And then when that person goes and does something, instead of it bringing up my stuff, my unhealed wounding, that it doesn't do anything. Instead, I react from a place of compassion and go, wow, just acknowledging where they're at, being curious from their perspective, that they think that it's okay to say that thing that I used to find totally offensive because I've healed it in myself. So last night I was particularly irritable. I was just spent. I was done. I was tired. And me and my husband Luke, we were laughing because I was able to articulate to him and go, you know what, it would not matter what you say or do right now. I'm going to be shitty. And just owning that, because that's where I was at. And again, not hating myself for being really irritable and, letting little things rile me up, but just going, yeah, I'm tired. I'm having a big week. And it was just, it's nice to be able to be in that unpleasant feeling, but making it okay, acknowledging that, yeah, I was gonna, say and do things that aren't me, but yeah, just making it okay. And yeah, sure enough, by just acknowledging it, making it okay, it shifts, and then I got a good night's sleep, and we're all good. We're good today. So yeah, just owning our reactions. And there's a few levels to this. So when we're younger, in our formative years, and we're experiencing certain feelings for the first time, when we don't have the resources that we have as adults, and what actually happens is that's when our neural pathways are formed. And what happens is neural pathways get formed through either two things, either intense emotional situations, so that might be what can be a traumatic experience, okay, or just, highly intense. So, for example, the very first time, you feel fear as a child, can be quite, and, it might just be a lower intensity where it's just, feeling scared of the dark, or it might be, a really intense situation that at the time felt really life-threatening. Okay. And so neural pathways become what I call superhighways. either through really intense experiences or just through lots of repetition. Okay, so quite often we model our ways of processing feelings through our primary caregivers as children. So if we saw anger being repressed and not used resourcefully, then we're very much likely to also, that's how we then process, and our neural pathways are formed during that time. So if as a child we developed unresourceful ways of processing our feelings and then we bring them into adulthood, so what can we do about that? Because we can often go, well, it's fixed. It can't, the way I do sadness can't change. And maybe the way I do sadness is to just really mope and throw myself into it and, you know, kind of just repeat the circles, the thought patterning, the story behind it. And that might last for weeks or a lifetime. Okay. So if these neural pathways are formed, what can I actually do about it? So as well as the how to process our emotions that I talked about yesterday, that's definitely beneficial. But if I've got some unresourceful ways, my neural pathways about how I process emotions, there's these great things. I think I talked about it not that long ago in a live, was timeline therapy or matrix therapies, which is a small component of NLP, whereby we go back to the original version of when we first felt that feeling and we reprogram it. We actually break the neural pathways that we have created in the brain and we create new ones with all the adult resources that we have in place. Okay, so an example might be when I felt fear, and maybe it was I heard a loud noise in the dark as a child. Okay, and what that did was it created a really strong neural pathway to just go into freeze mode. Okay, and that's not an uncommon scenario. Okay, but now maybe whenever I feel threatened, I go into freeze mode. Stop. Good deal. Okay, so what we can do as an adult is then utilizing this matrix therapies is actually revisit that. Okay, and now as an adult, I've got all of these adult resources that I can then give to my inner child or the younger version of myself. Okay, so some of the resources might be knowing it's okay. Okay, knowing that I am safe in the dark. Okay, that there's actually nothing there. Okay, quite often when we start to go through what are some of the resources that were available to us at the time that we didn't know because as little kids, quite often it comes down to things like being confident in ourselves and knowing that we are loved, knowing that we are safe. Okay, and yeah, it's actually quite often what will happen is we start out with the real logical brain sort of resources, and when we sort of flesh those out, then we get to some of the more subconscious ones, and there's quite often more potency and power in the unconscious ones once we get to those. Okay, so what actually happens with matrix therapies is we create a brand new neural pathway, and it's so powerful, so cool, and I'll never ever get tired of the reactions that people have once we then ask, how do we now feel about that old feeling? And you can actually see, you can tell by the direction of the eyes what parts of the brain that we're accessing information from. And more often than not, when we go, okay, so now tap into the, anger, sadness, fear, or guilt, you'll see the eyes darting everywhere and this look of confusion on the person's face because they can't actually access that old version of that feeling. And it's so cool. I remember when I first did it, the same thing. Is just like, well, that's really weird. Where is it? And it's gone. It's gone. Now, these are talked about as clearings. I personally refer to them as integrations because it's actually integrating the parts of ourselves that we rejected as a result of the original instance when we formed that neural pathway. So it's just bringing parts of ourselves that were rejected, denied, or discarded back into wholeness, so to speak. So that's a particular tool that I'm trained in, that I utilize for myself and for my clients. Okay, that's not the only way to retrain ourselves in how to deal with particular feelings. Okay, so that's particularly, well, it's useful for everyone, but particularly if you've got a particular emotion that you're like, either it comes up at times when it's not appropriate. Okay, so someone may at work have given us some feedback, okay, and as a result I snap into anger and it's actually not appropriate. Okay, it's okay that person's given me critical feedback and I just need to take it on board and adjust. Yeah, that's how we learn and grow, through performance evaluations in the workplace. Okay, or maybe I go straight into sadness and beat myself up and go, well, I'm crap at my job, I shouldn't be here, I need to go look for a new job just because of, so the reaction that I have isn't measured in response to the event. Okay, so that's a sign that there's a neural pathway there that has been created that doesn't necessarily have all the adult-based resources. We see that all the time. Okay, quite often, you see people overreact, or in some instances, and I'm a big one to this, we underreact. Okay, someone blatantly oversteps the boundaries or says something that's actually what is it? Says something that's they're insulting me, and I just won't react. So I've got very much underreacting emotions, and it'll only be like an hour or two later I'll be like, what? I should have said X, Y, Z. Yeah. And then a lot of people are in the overreacting. Okay. Something small gets said and they launch. Okay. Or go into meltdown. Yeah. Again, it's not judging. Okay. We're coming at this from a real compassionate place and just go, wow, what is it? Why is it that I underreact? What happened there? Okay. And then looking for ways to heal that. Okay. So quite often when we are overreacting, okay, we're going into self-preservation mode. Okay. And if we haven't been taught any differently, it's okay. All right. Once we know better, we do better. So Matrix has been such a gift for me and people that I've worked with in just resetting our base level for these feelings. And it doesn't mean you don't ever feel that feeling again. It just means that it's coming from a real, a new baseline, okay, with all our adult resources in place. Because, as we've grown up, we've learnt lots, but have we embodied that and actually taken that on board so that we're coming from that grown-up place, mature place. All right. Yeah, I think we'll leave it with that. So just owning our feelings, again, not using them to beat ourselves up because we do over or underreact, but just knowing that there are ways that we can create new resourceful ways of coming from our feelings. There's a few other things that I'm going to touch on in the videos over the next 3 days. So dealing with blocks to feelings, what to do, how to assess feelings, whether they're ours or not, for our beautiful empaths out there that pick up other things. And there was something else. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, just owning our feelings, knowing that we're choosing them, knowing that we can change them. Okay, and we can change them through processing. Okay, we can change them through state management, which I haven't talked as much about. But when we do state management, just being conscious that we're actually choosing to not process that feeling at that time. Okay, in which case we're kind of discarding it, rejecting it, or repressing it, and just being conscious that we're choosing that so that we can get on and do what we're doing. However, then hopefully choosing to then come back to it at another point in time and do the work that's required to heal that. Okay. Beautiful. One last thing. So when we do heal those aspects of ourselves, recreate those neural pathways, what actually happens is we actually become pretty invincible. Okay. If I get upset because I've been given some critical feedback at work, if I have then healed the aspect that then interprets that as full-blown rejection, that might be my overreaction. I go into sadness and feeling bad as a result of that. Okay, is that I then start to then not be triggered as much. Okay, and when I am actually triggered legitimately, then I'm able to just process it and not lash out and make other people wrong because they're the ones that have caused me to feel rejected. Okay. Yeah, it helps us become really superhumans. Okay. And for a lot of the world's problems where we're constantly blaming others for how we feel or the state of the world, I really see doing all of this inner work around our feelings is actually the ultimate solution to a lot of this. So up to you. But I, for one, acknowledge that I am responsible for everything that goes on around me. And I'm happy to do the work that sort of means that I get to have a better reality. So, yeah, I'll address that a lot more when I do the self-responsibility challenge. But yeah, just a heads up to what's possible. And it becomes increased confidence because you just become unflappable. It's like, even if I know that shit in the future, and it will, because that's life, we're human, this is what happens, we have feelings, things will invoke that, but knowing that I can process and work with those, and knowing that there's actually a massive gift in being invoked with an unpleasant emotion. So quite often these days, I'm very grateful to scenarios that bring stuff up for myself, because I'm like, okay, great, we're doing this. All right, I've just felt a bit of rejection, so let's do some processing around that. And so as opposed to running away and not wanting to feel that feeling, yeah, it does feel crappy. However, I will feel it because I know what the other side of it, I'm going to feel great. And kind of, yeah, you can't be messed with once you're open to processing these things, it's pretty cool. Very cool. I'll put it this way. If I hadn't processed a lot of things, I wouldn't be sitting here doing lives. Yeah, because I had a bunch of stories about, well, what will people think? It's like, okay, you can think what you need to think, and that's fine. And I'm going to keep doing what I need to do. And that's it. On that note, I'm going to finish up. So see you tomorrow.